I'm just going to go for it and see. But I'm so glad I did, because I feel like it was the right move at the right time for the right thing. And I'm glad that I pushed myself to do that. I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about learning new things and about mastering something new. I think that there's always that. I think it's just important for us to always, at whatever age, whatever stage in our careers, to keep moving ahead.
You've just heard Kristin Whitlock, the Director of Assessment at the College Board, former high school teacher, adjunct professor at the University of Utah, and now in a new role. Eric had the opportunity to sit down with Kristin at STP's 2023 Annual Conference on Teaching in Portland, Oregon. We want to thank STP for the space. Thank you, Lindsay Maslin, for making that happen for us. And we know that you are going to love this part 2 interview to hear what Kristin is up to these days on this 191st episode of Psych Sessions, Conversations about Teaching in Stuff. Hi everyone, Garth here. You know what I want out of a textbook? I want to know that my students are taking responsibility for their own learning, but I also want that textbook to support the learning, making it really interesting. So it turns out that Norton Publishing has a solution. Have you ever seen the book Interactive Psychology for your Intro Psych course? It's a dynamic, digital, low-cost book, and it introduces students to psychological science through experiences. It really values active learning. It's all in the title. And it comes from authors who have been doing this for a long time. From an instructor perspective, it allows you to hold your students accountable for their learning. And from a student perspective, there's lots of opportunity to do really interesting things, like participate in experiments and analyze data and explore cultural similarities and differences. They really work to make this book come to life. Again, it's Interactive Psychology from Norton, and you can check it out at www.norton.com/psych sessions. The Psych Sessions podcast is sponsored by STP. That is the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. That's APA Division 2. You can find them at teachpsych.org. The views or product endorsements expressed do not represent the views, support, or endorsements of STP. Psych Sessions is so grateful to have STP as a long-term supporter. Macmillan Psychology's Achieve for Psychology is here to help you build academic integrity in the classroom, because it's not just about cheating, it's about increasing positive behaviors. Achieve helps you build academic integrity in the classroom through goal setting and reflection surveys. These frequent low-stakes assignments prepare students for exams and thus reduce course stresses that can lead to cheating. Achieve's goal setting and reflection surveys also help students set personal goals and provide instructors meaningful ways to check in with students and their goals. Again, helping students feel more comfortable in class and with study materials helps instructors keep academic dishonesty out of the classroom. Preview how Achieve helps build academic integrity in the classroom at macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions.
I'm here with a dear, dear friend. She can deny it all she wants, but I'm going to claim her as a dear friend, Kristin Whitlock. Hi, Kristin.
Hello, Eric. I'll claim you too as a dear, dear friend. We've known each other a long time.
A long time.
Yes.
And you can go plausible deniability anytime during this podcast.
Okay.
How long do you think it has been? I have a hard time pinpointing this with most people.
Well, I think I have to go all the way back to the AP reading. I think that's where I met you first.
Okay, probably Daytona?
Yeah, because I started in 2001 in Daytona. So I think you were already there because you've been reading what you said at Trinity.
I read
before?
Trinity was my first. So I'm going to guess 2001, which would be 22 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a whole person. That's a whole adult.
That's a whole adult in most countries in the world. You're exactly right. That's exactly what it is. I'm glad we've got the laugh recorded. That
good.
warms the cockles of my heart.
Aw,
I've never understood the cockles, but I'm going to look it up sometime. I really am. Normally I would start with an introduction of what you do, but what's interesting about me inviting you for part 2 is that you have changed obviously you were a high school teacher for 33 years. And at one time I knew what high school you taught at Utah, and I'm going to let you repeat that. But you have retired. I'm doing air quotes for our listeners.
Yes.
You've retired from that gig, but you have a new gig. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to invite you today, because I see a real trend in a lot of the people that we know and love in the STP, Society for Teaching of Psychology world, where they're changing jobs, changing careers. People say they're going to retire, but they don't really retire. They just retire from one gig and get another. So let's start at the very beginning, because I've been told it's a very good place to start. And you were a high school teacher for 33 years. And what was the last school that you taught at in Utah?
Yeah, I taught at Davis High School in Kaysville, Utah.
There you go.
Lovely, lovely school. Great kids, great administration.
And what grade did you teach when you ended your career there?
Well, mostly seniors, but I had sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
Were you teaching all AP Psych all day long?
Well, I taught AP psychology. I also taught introductory psychology, which is kind of like the on-level intro non-AP class.
Okay. So, and were there 6 or 7 periods in a day typically?
Well, we were on a block schedule.
Gotcha.
So we had 4 periods a day, but along with teaching AP psychology and the on-level, I was also teaching a concurrent enrollment class, an introductory class for Weber State University. So I kind of was doing all introductory psychology all day, but 3 different forms.
Tell me what on-level means. I'm not familiar with that.
That's just like introductory psychology, non-college level. So it's like if they're not getting college credit, so like concurrent enrollment, they can earn college credit through Weber State University in this case, or advanced placement psychology, of course. They can, if they get a qualifying score when they take the exam at the end of the year, they can earn college credit through the institution that they attend. But for an introductory on level, it's just for, students who'd like a little introduction to the field, but there's no college credit earned in the class.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have to predetermine that path at the beginning of the semester. They can't just start and go in the on level and go, oh, I really love this. I'm going to switch gears and go into AP.
Well, they could. I have had students in the past where they might be in the class for maybe a week and they say, oh, I think I want to do AP. In the same way, maybe sometimes I have students who are in the advanced placement class and they're like, I think this might be too much. I think I'm going to take this semester. Okay. So it kind of depends.
And so, and if this is too personal or you just really can't identify it, that's fine. We can either skip over it or I can just edit this whole little section out. So you're doing it for 33 years and you switched to a new job now, and we're going to talk about in a minute. Did you start to feel the burnout of 33 years of high school teaching, retire from that, and then a new thing came along? Or did a new opportunity come along while you were teaching and you started thinking, wow, this could be a really interesting opportunity for me. I could stretch my skills. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Was it a start, stop, start again? Or was it a start, oh, there's a new beau in town. I might want to go out on a date. But I'm not gonna cheat. I'm not gonna cheat. I'm gonna cut off this relationship and I'm gonna start a new one clean. That's maybe not a very good analogy. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both. I still identify in my heart as a teacher, even though I'm retired, which is probably, I'm probably always going to be that way because I still see the world and identify through the lens of, even at ACT, even though I'm not currently teaching a course, I've been taking notes and there was a slide of, Stephen Chu was doing his presentation this morning. And I was like, I took out my camera and took a picture of a slide. And I'm like, well, I could really use that. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to use that. I'll have to pass it on to one of my teacher friends to use, So I still, there's many things about being in the classroom that I still love. And I still have that tug of being a teacher.
That's really evident to me, not only knowing you, but even 15 minutes ago in a stairway conversation. And trust me, I wanted it to be an elevator conversation, but you forced it to be a stairway. And at 33 years teaching, you've been teaching for more than half of your life. So it's clearly in your DNA. And because I've met your son in person, it's your son's DNA.
Right.
At least one of them, it's in your son's DNA because he became a teacher.
Right. Well, and he's actually now he's going to get his master's degree in social work. So he's still, but he wants to work within like an academic,
like mother, like son.
Working with students and so on. So that's still part of his passion. But I would say that, the past few years, like a lot of educators, I think on every level, it's been really stressful. I think a lot of teachers have been experiencing that feeling of burnout. And, I think, 33 years in, I think I was starting to feel more of that. And I think it was started to just kind of deepen a little bit with the work that having to change curriculum to make it totally online required. I was lucky that I was collaborating really closely with a dear friend, Annette Nielsen, who is in my school district. We collaborated so closely and we stayed very close together in our course because we kind of figured when COVID started that if one of us got sick, if we stayed together, we'd be able to take over each other's courses and the students wouldn't miss a beat. And so we spent a lot of time, but it did turn into some weeks where we were working maybe 80-hour weeks. It was just becoming like, I just could start to feel that increasingly, the pressure of trying to keep up on everything that needed to be done. So I think that probably hurried along my retirement, probably more than I probably would have predicted.
I think there's a couple of things in there that you're describing. I think one is the climate of education, both at the secondary and the higher ed level, getting harder to do, students getting sometimes more impatient, parents helicoptering or snow plowing in. I know that happens at the college level. I know from my conversations with my high school friends, including you, that it's getting harder to do at the high school level. But then I think COVID put a big fat magnifying glass on everything.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like you just described. And so I think a lot of people reevaluated, do I want to keep doing this way?
Right.
And I think you just described it really eloquently that this reward, this passion that I've had for so long, over 3 decades, now all of a sudden, A, do I want to keep doing this?
Right.
And B, could there be other things out there that could be equally or more fulfilling?
Right.
Especially when you have over 30 some years acquired some expertise and some knowledge of the field and best practices on how to do things that could be financially viable to other entities.
And I think a lot of times for educators, I mean, I'm not sure about in higher ed, but at the high school level, sometimes we don't really see that the skills that we've acquired at the high school, teaching in a high school could actually be something that's attractive outside of education. It's like, this is all I can do. I really don't like that, but I'm just a teacher, right? I'm just a high school teacher. So I think that sometimes we don't think that the skills that we have might be attractive outside of education.
And I'm going to add another layer to that and forgive me. All right. We're good friends, but forgive me. All right. I also think sometimes the added layer is that women don't do that. Women don't self-value their skills, their ability, their expertise. And so I think there's the double whammy of, taking that risk and saying, I've got a lot going on here for myself. I can go out and do consulting. I can go out and do a career change. I don't have these golden handcuffs. I don't have to stay in the high school or in the tenure track position in college or whatnot. And so there's these competing factors, I think, and I like to call it the golden handcuffs. Or, you could have stayed 10 more years, 8 more years in your school district, and they would have loved to have had you. And it would have been safe, and it would have been a no-brainer, and you could have done it with one hemisphere tied behind your back, right? Because you've been doing it for so long.
You're right.
But you took a risk, you stepped away from one thing, and now you're stepping into another thing.
Yeah, well, trying out the skills that I've developed. I've had some really wonderful opportunities in the time that I've been teaching, right? I mean, whether being involved with TOPS, with APA, with STP, with the reading, the AP reading, we talked about that earlier. I've had lots of really wonderful opportunities that have given me a chance to develop some skills that I think that 30 years ago when I started, I wouldn't believe that I'm sitting here talking to you right now. That these sorts of things like, oh, I can't believe that these windows opened up for me, in certain ways.
All right.
So,
but I'm sorry for interrupting. Before we go much further,
okay.
And it's really kind of you to describe it that way. And you said it once, and I didn't interrupt you. I didn't stop you in your tracks. But I'm not a big believer, as regular listeners will know, I'm not a big believer in luck.
Yeah, that's right.
So you are talking about opportunities that you've been afforded. And
yes, I appreciate that.
And I appreciate that too. But let's also realize that you made the most of those opportunities, whether it was IPI or APA or TOPS or CABE or whatever, or national standards, or I'm sorry, I'm forgetting 82 of the other things that you've done nationally and internationally in your career. I'm sorry, I don't have your CV in front of me. This is all from memory.
I thought you'd have that memorized by now.
I don't have KristinWhitlock.com on my phone right now. Chandler did that for your retirement party, and I don't have it up on my phone. I don't have a big screen. Sorry. That small font, I really can't handle. You really should adjust that poor boy. So, but and like everyone that we know in our club, our family, they took the ball and they ran with it. Yes, right. You were off of the ball was hiked to you. You were in the huddle, but like Utah State and the U. Once you're in the conference, you got to make the best of it, the most of it, and I think you have.
Well, I don't think that I don't think. Yeah, I've kind of wondered, now where I stand now. I just kind of wonder if COVID had not happened, if I would still be teaching, if I would still be, just fine. I mean, because even at 30 some years in, at that point, I was like, yeah, I could see myself, like you said, just continuing. But I think there was something about that just got me thinking more. But even this year, I really wasn't thinking about anything different. I was actually thinking, well, maybe I'll go till 35, right? Maybe I'll go 35. I have a daughter who will graduate in 2025. And I thought, we'll graduate together. I can teach her in AP psychology, and we'll graduate together. And I was kind of thinking that. But, then when this opportunity at College Board came around and I read through the description of the job, I thought, well, this could be pretty cool. I mean, it kind of matches up in terms of the interests that I have and the things that I've done. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? I mean, I'll just apply and see what happens. So I have to tell you, I was totally surprised when when I got the first interview, and I was like, whoa. I mean, wow, this now became real, because it was kind of just theoretical, before. So anyway.
So I want to come back. I definitely want to come back to that, but I want to press you gently on one thing.
Yes.
What do you think happened during the pandemic? I mean, was the pandemic for you a big magnifying glass? Was it a moment of reflection and meditation? I mean, so you've been cruising along, by the way, very successfully in your career.
Right.
And I don't know I don't know you well enough to know if you were happy in your job or happy with things that were going on. That's none of my business. But by your own thought, something happened during the pandemic. And I'll bet that whatever you can articulate, if you choose to, happened to a lot of other people too.
Yeah.
Do you have you reflected on?
Well, I think because, we were at the beginning of the pandemic, in March of 2020, we were sent home, right, without knowing what we were dealing with, right? Nobody knew. But in a week, we had to have, materials ready for students to take them to the end of the year without without having a lot of instruction about how to do that well. And I've never been a person where I just want to do it just to get it done. I want to do it right. And so to not have like the necessary tools or the knowledge to make that work. I just remember being at home trying to teach myself 3 different applications all in the same day and just breaking down crying because I could not figure it out. And I remember contacting a teacher at my school and saying, can you help me? And he jumped onto a Zoom call and started to just take me through step by step. And I was so thankful for that collaboration. So really, I think, I've been over my career, collaboration has been a big deal for me, but it became even more apparent how important that was to get through what was about to come. But I think there's the fear of not knowing what we're dealing with, right? A pandemic, not knowing how that could impact the people that we care about. That's one part of it. But then there's the other part of trying to help students because that's what I do. That's what we do, right? How do I help them? And how do I develop curriculum that can be in any format? Because by the time we started the next school year, were we going to be hybrid? Would we be at home? Would we be face to face? So that was one of the things that my colleague Annette and I started to develop materials that could be in any format. We developed what we call these virtual notebooks, so that students then could have it in whether it didn't matter. But the time that it took to create something that we felt would really work well, it was amazing. It took a lot. And I think that was actually probably that point, like you're saying, where did it start to break down, or where did I start to really think that this is just too much, was probably just the pressure of trying to, and it was probably my own pressure on myself in some ways, that it had to be just so, right? But there were times where, and I've talked about this with my friend Annette, where I didn't even feel like myself. I felt like I was getting lost in trying to be the teacher that matched the teacher in my head, if that makes sense. Because I was trying to reconcile the way that I would teach, right? Face-to-face, interactive, hands-on, all the things that that came easily, trying to put it into a medium that was like learning a new language.
There's so much there to unpack. It's so good. Thank you for sharing that. So you were trying to translate your expertise that had developed over 28, 29 years that, let's just be real for a moment and forget we're recording, that you were expert teacher. You were an award-winning teacher. You could pull it off in the classroom with relative ease to you.
Right.
Not to a new teacher, but to you, 29 years experience. Repeated practice over nearly 3 decades. And now all of a sudden, you can't do that in the pandemic, but you want to, and you'll bend over backwards because you don't want to disappoint your students and you don't want to disappoint yourself.
Yeah.
And so you're working 80 hours a week with technology. You haven't touched much, if at all. And it's not like you got an instructional designer sitting next to you at home on your home computer, which probably wasn't as good as your school computer. I don't know that for sure. And I can hear it in your voice, the anxiety. And I would bet the first weeks or months that the disappointment that you piled on yourself, as you admitted, I'm not serving my students the way I'm used to.
Right.
I mean,
or even like getting to know them in the same way, right? Because I was teaching in a mask and we use our face. We're teachers. We use our expressions.
Yeah.
Right? To help convey what we're trying to get across. And I was trying to teach through a mask, and my students, and I'm sure a lot of other teachers felt this, is like they were subdued.
You mean when you were back in the classroom?
Yeah, we were back in the classroom, face to face. They're in mass, we're in mass. At the beginning, it was hybrid, so we saw half the alphabet one day, the rest the other day. I mean, it was an interesting situation, but looking out at them and trying to get to know who they are. I mean, because part of good teaching is communication. And part of good communication is seeing each other's expressions, right? And getting to know just their eyes, right? I mean, it was interesting, like when we graduated the class that I was teaching, when masks were gone. So we're talking, a year, 2 years later. And I saw them, because we have a lovely tradition at Davis where the students, when they leave graduation, they all go through the same tunnel. And all the teachers line the tunnel and we clap as they come by. I had students coming up to me and thanking me and hugging me. And I did not recognize many of them because I only knew their eyes. I needed them to put their mask on so I could recognize who they were. But I think that was also part of the challenge is how do I now communicate to students when I can't use my face to do that?
And it's not going to be as satisfying to you.
Right.
Because you had found the medium that really worked for you and you had perfected it for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's what makes me think of, it's almost, this isn't going to make any sense except in my little brain. I think maybe we have what's called a teaching age. Let me see if I can spit this out. And I may edit this part out, my own idea. You ever seen the pictures of the president of the United States when they're inaugurated and 4 years later?
Mm-hmm.
And 4 years later, they look more than 4 years older because of the stress of the job. If you started the pandemic at age 29 years of teaching, your teaching age of 29, let me just make this thing up. And then the pandemic lasts 2 years, you'd come out at the teaching age of 31. But what I'm thinking is that for all of us, our teaching age double or triple accelerated. Just like the president of the United States accelerates in their 4 years. I think the stressors for you, from what I'm hearing, were just super high. And it really weighed on you and Annette, too.
And I don't think that's totally unique. Like when I talk to colleagues.
Yeah, right.
When I talk to my colleagues, I think that we all felt it. And I think that educators are still feeling it at all levels, right? Because students are still coming back, right? They're still coming back from the effects of their stressors as well, right? Because they had to learn how to learn in new ways.
Right.
And some of them, it was so hard for them.
But I do think different faculty members had a different coefficient, if you will, in those two. I've got a colleague at Boise State who taught online for the first time. And at first had that reaction, I gotta switch gears. I've never done this. And now she loves it. And she'll only teach online. Right. And we never see her in our office suite. And she beams in on Zoom for faculty meetings. And she's very, very happy. So I think she had that initial bump in the road. I got to adjust, but doesn't have the long-term effect that I think it had on you from what I'm hearing. So.
Right.
So let me switch gears.
Okay.
So now you are what they say in the business, happy as a clam.
Happy as a clam.
And so tell the listeners about your new job and what you're doing, please.
I'm happy to. Well, I work for College Board now. I'm the director of assessment for AP Psychology. So I am incredibly fortunate to be working with Amy Feinberg, who is the course lead for AP Psychology. So we are working together where I am primarily working on all things assessment. So working on question development and, everything related to assessing what students should know about introductory psychology after they take the course.
Let's give our listeners some context. So this is a national job.
Yes.
This is a national position.
Yes.
And AP Psychology is taken by roughly how many high school students in the United States a year?
Well, last year it was about 320,000, give or take. I think it was 323,000, but I don't have it right in front of me.
And the successful AP, again, for listeners who may not be familiar, students who take the AP Psych test and earn a certain score are eligible at many institutions for college credit.
That's correct.
Okay. And so you are in charge of the assessment process of what scores count, how the items, I'm assuming both the multiple choice and the free response and everything, all things assessment.
Right, right. So primarily working with folks, we have folks who write questions for us. And so starting at the very beginning of the process and working with those individuals to kind of communicate what it is that we're looking for in a good question, both multiple choice and FRQ. We're still working on our FRQs because we've got a new curriculum that is, in process. And so just from the very beginning of looking at the items, editing those items, and then working them through the entire process until they will eventually move into what we call a form, which would be like an exam.
Okay. And I think the AP reading, as it were, high school and community college and college students grade those, the FRQs, has now moved back to face-to-face. Is that correct?
Yes. But we actually, with the pandemic years, we were reading at home.
Right.
So we've been back face-to-face. But because of the pandemic, it actually has offered some flexibility for folks who would like to read from home. So we have some remote readers and we have some that come on site. So we actually had more people that were reading remote this year than we had on site. So we had about 700 people. I think it was 711 people that were involved, reading 323,000 responses. But we did have more people actually reading from home because it's nice for them to have that flexibility if they can't travel to the site, because we were in Tampa last year and next year we're going to be in Kansas City. So I think it's kind of nice for folks who want to be involved and want to be a part of the process, but can't give up that time to be away from family and other responsibilities.
So will you and Amy Feinberg be on site as ETS personnel when the AP reading takes place?
Well, we don't work for ETS. ETS is separate body.
I apologize.
But we will be on site. We will be on site working with the reading and helping to manage the reading.
Is there a program for the reading where alumni readers who don't want to read, but who will pay their own way and come back, and they get a special badge to come in during breaks to visit with all their friends who are readers, table leaders, question leaders, the chief
You're just
readers?
Missing the snacks. You just want the snacks, the read and feed. You just want to come and have snacks.
I don't know. I'll provide my own snacks, my own drinks.
You come. I can't guarantee that you can come into the reading site for security reasons, but after we're done for the day, we'll tell you where to show up. It's always fun to be had after the reading day is over.
The flying saucer is no longer in Kansas City.
I know. I don't know what happened to our plate. Because do you know what happened to the plate?
I've heard tell stories about it's no longer there.
Well, because
we drank a lot.
Yes, in order to get the what would you describe it as? The award? An award?
Yeah, something.
No, anyway.
Yeah. So and you're not doing professional night anymore either, right? Is that right? You don't have a speaker come in?
Well, every chief reader can decide what they would like to do in that time, and Rick Seafield started to do a trivia night, and Steve Jones, who's a fantastic teacher, has been leading trivia night. And so Elliot Hammer, who's the current chief reader, it was so popular trivia night that he wanted to keep it. And so it's actually, we have so many people come out for that particular night and have fun with that. So we've continued.
You're never going to have a professional night where you invite someone to come out and give a talk. That's never going to happen.
I don't know. It totally depends on who is the chief reader.
It's kind of like getting an invitation to UTOPS. You got to get an invitation, and if you don't go the first time, you're never going to be invited.
Oh, that's
back.
Not true. That's not true.
You're
Eric.
never going to be invited.
You
back.
are on the list. I know you are.
I remember being a reader, and Dave Myers was the invited speaker, and he just gave a great talk.
Right.
He came out one year.
I think in the history of the time I've been at the AP reading, I think we have had amazing. I just think we have such an amazing community, and boy, the folks that we've had come out and do those talks, really, they've been impactful. They've been great, including David's.
But I get it. The culture has changed, and if people
it's grown a lot,
and people enjoy trivia. That's right. Totally
well, and it's grown a lot. So when you think about when you were reading,
Well, the David Myers one was in Kansas City, and there's
Kansas
probably
City.
500 readers then.
Yeah. Well, actually, with today, it'd probably be, I mean, it would feel different because there's fewer readers than that now. I mean, the rooms would feel a lot smaller where the reading is taking place, but now everything is done on computers. Everything is digital. So for old-time readers that were used to being there, the books being transferred from
You're
room
not getting
to
blue
room.
books?
Yeah, we don't have the books. They don't get transferred from room to room. You don't hear the carts, the wheels, hitting against the tile as they go back and forth and so on.
Did you read at the time where there were Band-Aids?
Band-Aids?
Yeah. So the book got passed, and you wrote the score in the book, and there was a plastic. It looked like a Band-Aid, and it got read by two people, and the first person who read it covered it up with this thing that looked like a Band-Aid.
Oh.
And there was an inter-rater reliability check. And because there was such a small number.
Okay. No, I was not there for that.
And there was it was called a Band-Aid. And yeah.
Nope, that predates me. Me.
Well, that's because I'm older than you. That's why I would remember such things. Are you enjoying your new job? So
yes.
When did you start?
In June.
June,
just at the end of June.
So you're only 5 months in.
Yeah. So I was actually retired I like to say for 10 days because I finished teaching, and it was lovely being able to say goodbye to my students and my community and everything else. And then I went right to the AP reading, because I was working with Elliot as the assistant chief reader, and had a great reading. And then I was home for about 10 days, just trying to clear through things and get ready to start something new. Getting my home office all set up. So you
knew you wanted to start something new. You knew you weren't retired.
Right. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You applied for one thing and you got it, and that's that we're going to leave that on the record.
Well, no, we can talk about it. We can talk about it. No, I had an opportunity I was able to move from one thing to the next pretty seamlessly, which was a blessing in many ways. And so I started at the end of June, and it's been I don't know how to describe it. I've had to stretch myself in so many new ways. Learning new programs, learning new procedures, learning new names and acronyms and ways of doing things. But I have been so lucky to have, Amy to help me along. But I also have a manager that is so willing to answer my questions, has been able to help me through. So I don't have any complaints. I'm really, really enjoying what I'm doing and learning a lot. So it's stretching me a lot that I appreciate as well.
And I knowing you, Kristin, I think you have a natural love of learning. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I
hope so.
You're taking notes in Steve Chu's session, even though you're not teaching when you go back home. So you love learning. You love being a student. And so that stretch, you're at a point in your career where I think the stretch is good. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken the job. You would have retired.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what I really appreciate is an opportunity to be able to use some of the knowledge and some of the skills that I've gained over time in the different roles that I've had, and to be able to use it in a new way, and hopefully to be able to benefit the community of teachers and students who take AP psychology. So I mean, I think I feel comfortable in what in terms of the test development piece, I feel really comfortable in doing that. And I just hope that I can, hope I can do it well.
Well, let me give you the flip side of that,
okay,
which is it's ETS, right? Or College Board.
College Board.
College Board is not a charitable institution. They had many, many applicants. They chose the best one they thought would fit for the job. And if you're not doing a good job, they're going to stop paying you. So it's not like, oh, that Kristin Whitlock, that Utah gal, she's so nice. Let's pay her a paycheck.
I know that there were many, many talented people. I know there were many talented people who applied for this job.
And you were the best qualified.
Well, I'm thankful that I'm thankful that but I will say that that there were many, many fantastic people that applied, I'm sure, for this job.
And out of those people, you were the best.
Well, no, I'm not sure the best, but I
No.
No.
Do you think College Board said, look at all these great people. We're going to hire the 10th best. Kristin Whitlock.
No, well.
Because we don't deserve the best at the College Board. We deserve the 10th best.
No, I'm sure that it was a difficult decision because there are so many fantastic people in our community. I know.
My God, you can't take a bow.
No, I'm being real. This is real. There are so many amazing people in our community that could be sitting in this chair talking to you right now about this position.
But they're not.
And do a fantastic job.
But they're not.
So,
because they didn't pick them.
I appreciate their confidence, and I want to live up to that confidence for sure.
Oh my gosh, This is just me.
For sure.
All right.
I know it's just you.
Can we just be honest?
I'm not being honest. You know me well.
No, you're being you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let me ask a different question. Maybe just around your husband or around your family.
Okay.
Do you ever brag? I mean, do you ever go, oh my God, that turned out well? Oh my God, I did good at that. Look, and whatever it is in your life.
Well, I think everybody does from time to time.
So, okay, that's not even a straight answer. Do you?
No,
good for you. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, let me say, I am very proud. I am very proud. I can look back over my time in the classroom, and I'm very proud of what I could accomplish in that time.
Yeah, because
I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of my students, and I wait a minute, I know you're trying to, but I think I've tried to have a positive impact. And I don't know if I can always say 100% that I did all the time, right? Because it's real,
'Cause you're human.
right?
I understand that.
But I think overall, if I look back over my career, I can say, yeah, I am very happy and proud of what I was able to accomplish.
Look, it's just me and you. Look, I'm turning off the recording. See how I turned it off? Yeah. And I know people really struggle with this, and I do too. When people try to pay me compliments, sometimes it just drives me a little wacky.
Right.
And Jane's been in my ear about this for about 10 years.
Right.
And all hail Jane. So, but you're very good at framing this for yourself. You practiced. It's clear. I don't know if it's an upbringing, your parents. Somebody gets credit for this. And seriously, you do it well. But you're a world-class expert at what you've been doing. And another company recognized that and hired you. That's awesome. I mean, that act alone is a high-class compliment.
Well, like I said, I thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
You know, we've got maybe a few minutes left. I'm going to change the topic to save you because we're friends.
Thank you. Yes.
What else is going on? Well, you know, your mid-career to later careers or other things you want to do, maybe not job-wise, but other challenges. You got a book in you? Do you want to travel the world? What do you want to do?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think right now my focus is really been on learning what I'm doing now and trying to master what I'm doing now. So that's probably the main thing. But if I pull it back from that, I'm my core a family person. And so, my daughter is a junior. And so, in this coming summer, we're going to take a trip together. We're going to go on a cruise and cruise the Mediterranean. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
The two of you or the whole family?
Well, first it was just going to be my daughter and I, and then my sisters joined in and my sister's spouse. And then Chandler that you mentioned before, he just recently found out that he's able to come. So we are going to go together and along with like 50 or 60 other friends because There was just this big group. One of my good friends at school, her and her mom have a travel agency. She's put together this fantastic trip, and everybody has just been jumping on so it's going to be a fantastic couple of weeks.
So you're going to fly to some port, maybe in Florida.
We're going to go to Athens first.
But you're going to sail. Will you get off a bunch of places and explore?
So we'll go to Greece. We're going to go to Turkey.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're going to go to Nice. We'll be in France, and then we'll end up in Rome. So I have not been overseas since before I started teaching. So when I actually, my first trip to Europe, I went with my cooperating teacher. She was taking a tour group, and we were her children. My sisters and I went with her. And so I haven't had an opportunity. I've been so buried deep in so many things that some of these things I probably have put off for too long. So I'm going to jump back in and do a big cruise.
How old were you when you did that trip?
I was 22 or 23. I think I was 22.
Where'd you go?
We spent 2 weeks. We did a week in England and a week in France. So primarily in the London area and primarily in the Paris area.
And you went with your sister?
I have a twin sister and then my younger sister.
Wait a second. All right. Stop the presses. All right. We might need a part 2.
Just edit out a bunch of the stuff that you don't want to know and doesn't go longer.
All right. So you have a twin sister.
I have a twin sister.
And then you said you have another sister.
I have a younger sister.
A younger sister. So are there 3 girls?
Yes, and then I have an older brother. So there's 4 total.
4 total.
4 siblings.
So there's an older brother, 2 twins in the middle, and a younger
sister.
Girl.
Yes.
All right. Let me wrap my head around this for a second.
You didn't know I had a twin sister?
I didn't.
Oh, I thought for sure you knew.
No. Well, if I knew it at one point, I'd forgotten.
It disappeared, yeah.
I'm sorry. So of the twin sister, which one is older?
She is by 5 minutes.
Okay. And I asked this of every twin or triplet I ever ask.
Yes.
Do they remind you of that fact incessantly, that she's older than you?
It's funny that you should ask that. It gets brought up more by people on the outside.
Oh, like guys
than
like me.
Us. Yeah. So it's more like, my mom will say, well, she is 5 minutes older, something like that, but it's not usually she and I talking about the age difference.
So if in your family of 4, are you referred to as the second born?
No, just the twins.
The twins.
The twins.
So the older brother, the twins,
yes.
and then
My
the youngest, the baby.
The baby, yes.
And so if you can tell me to move on if you want to. I'm
not sure if this is going to be interesting to your listeners.
Oh, it's interesting to me, and right now that's all I care about. The oldest, and then what's the gap between the oldest age-wise and the twins? How many?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The twins are born, and then what's the gap between the twins and the youngest daughter?
8 years.
8 years. All right.
8 years. 8
Hallelujah.
years.
Here we go.
Yes.
Because there's an 8.5 year gap between my older sister and me.
Okay.
So I can relate to the youngest.
To that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because my sister thought, she was the cat's meow until, depending on who you ask, there was either a mistake or a surprise. That would be me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how your younger sister feels about that. So did you get the treatment growing up where you were dressed the same?
No, not really.
And
not really.
Don't you think that's the best practice, better practice?
Well, it was good for us. My mom was a teacher. My mom taught, she had her own school. She was a preschool teacher.
Gosh,
yes. And she was actually the best teacher I think I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of great teachers, but I grew up watching a great teacher, and she was teaching 3 and 4-year-olds. And so
preschool?
Yeah, preschool.
Pre-K?
She had a preschool in our home down in the basement. And so I grew up watching her manage these little children, and she was a master. There was a time where she needed to be gone, so I subbed for her, and I was managing her little 3 and 4-year-olds for like 2.5 hours. By the end of I was exhausted. I'm like, I don't know how you've done this. And she actually taught for about 37 years.
And preschool in her home.
Mm-hmm. 37 years. So she was a master teacher.
So teachers for at least 3 generations.
Mm-hmm.
What about your mom's parents?
My mom's dad was killed in World War II.
Okay.
So he was killed right ahead of the Battle of the Bulge. So he was actually her her mother remarried. And so her mom actually did not graduate from high school.
Mhm.
And so
Neither did my dad, by the way.
But my mom
Yeah.
went to college. She went on the GI Bill to Utah State. And so this was 1960.
Something.
Yeah, 62 maybe when she started, up there. But it was unusual, I think, at that time for not only a woman to be at the university, but to finish. And so she actually had a double major in child development and social work.
I was just asking that because I was going for the 4 generation.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Twins.
Twins.
And so how often do you see your twin sister?
Oh, all the time. All the time. We actually live in the same town. We live just a few minutes apart from one another.
I was almost expecting you to say we live in the same duplex.
Yeah, we should. We should. Well, I think one of the hardest times we ever had is when she got her master's degree in social work down at UNLV. And this was the first time we were like separated by distance, right? I mean, when I got married before she did. And so that separated us in a way, but we still lived in the same town. But then she went down to school, and that was very difficult for me to have her so far away.
Please tell me that your husbands are twins. Oh, please.
No, they are not.
Please.
No. Her husband was a professional ball player. He played basketball. He was a professional
And your
basketball
husband
player.
was a professional football player.
No, he played football in high school, but he was a teacher for 35 years.
Okay.
He was a teacher. So we do have a lot of education in our family. It does run in families.
It's in the DNA.
Yeah, it runs in families. It runs in families. And then my younger sister is a professor at Utah State University. So she is in the biology. So she is also an educator.
Yeah, if anybody goes into anything other than education, do they like to sit at the kiddie table at Thanksgiving?
Yes.
I mean, is that...
Yes. Yeah, we think there's something wrong with them.
What?
Something wrong with them.
What? You want to be a veterinarian? You go sit in the other room.
The other room.
What are you talking about?
Well, my twin sister is a social worker. And my brother, he's retired now, but he was a defense analyst. So he actually worked for the U.S.
So there's the non-teacher.
Yeah, he's a non-teacher.
What a slacker.
Yeah, what a slacker.
Just worked for the government his whole life.
Come on.
And that was his cover story, defense analyst. We don't really know what he did for the government.
No, we don't know.
You really can't say what you really do for the government. By the way, when we first post this podcast, 10 minutes later, it's going to be taken down, anonymously on some server. Our servers are going to be seized. Hey, it was an innocent joke, dude. What are you talking about?
He's retired.
Yeah, that's what he told you. He's retired. They're still listening. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. It's been almost an hour, Kristin. Was there anything that, I know, time flies when you're being grilled. I know.
Being grilled.
Yeah.
No, it's been a lovely visit.
45 out of the 50 minutes have been lovely, and I appreciate that from you. Is there anything that, as we were talking about sitting down for this, that you said, oh, I hope he asks me this, or I want to be sure to mention this, or I want to plug this new XYZ, other than College Board, Is there anything that was on your mind or,
Well, probably along with the theme of change.
You mean the integrated themes?
No, yeah, integrated themes.
You want to mention the pillars? No. Go ahead.
No.
Go for it.
No.
Change.
But probably just in the vein of change. We talked about how that a lot of times, teachers can't see themselves in other forums doing other things because there's always a risk, when you think about yourself in a totally different way. And so it was scary. It was actually scary. It was scary, saying I'm going to leave something that I'm so comfortable doing and enjoy to try something new. But it seemed like let's go for it. Like I said, I'm just going to go for it and see. But I'm so glad I did because I feel like it was the right move at the right time for the right thing. And I'm glad that I pushed myself to do that, because I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about learning new things and about mastering something new, right? I mean, I think that there's always that. I think it's just important for us to always, at whatever age, whatever stage in our careers, to keep moving ahead, to keep thinking about how can I improve myself? What are other things I can do? So that would be the only thing I would add. is that for folks out there thinking, well, there's nothing else I can do, to try to, can you find those things that help push you in a cool new direction?
I think there's two things intertwined in there. I think one is, people handicap's not the right word, self-select out of options. People cut themselves off at the knees thinking, oh, I'm not going to be competitive for that job, so I won't apply.
Right.
Oh, I don't think I would get that. Or they'll say, oh, I don't think I would deserve that, so I won't buy that thing or apply for that thing, or oh, I won't go to that concert because I don't think it's going to be very good. They kind of have that negative affect, that negative attribution in their head, and they kind of opt out before they've even opted in.
Right.
You could have told yourself, I would never going to get this job at College Board. Why should I even bother to apply? Yeah.
And, I was visiting with a good friend at school, and I was telling her that I was thinking about it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Exactly what you're saying.
Right.
I don't know. And she said to me, well, this opportunity may never come around again. You don't know unless you at least give it a go. And I was like, I think she's right. Why not? It's okay. It's okay for me to take this risk and to try.
Right.
So,
and I think those two outcomes, they offer you the job. If it turns out not to be what you want, you can always say no to them. And even if you didn't get the job, that just means that you put yourself out there. You found out that you're not a good match and fit according to them. And that means you would have applied for the next great thing that came along.
Right.
And your world, you'd have been disappointed, but your world continues to spin on its axis. And, all teasing aside, you're a really positive person, and you have built this amazing skill set over 3 decades. And so if it wasn't going to be that awesome thing, it would have been something other awesome thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I have to end on a serious note.
Okay.
All right. So you don't have to end on a serious note, but I have to end on a serious note. I thank you so much for sitting down with me today to do this. I know you have a lot of podcast choices. I'm glad you chose Psych Sessions. And so thank you for doing that. I tease a lot, but we tease the ones that we love. And I want our listening audience and you to know that I adore you. So thank you for being with me today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. You're very dear to me too.
Yeah.
It's nice to be sitting down with you today.
Thank you.